Stop buying spinach. Just stop. Every time you plant a row of spinach seeds, you are signing up for weeks of back-breaking labor for a fleeting harvest. You water it, you protect it from slugs, you watch it grow. And then, what happens? The moment the temperature hits degrees, it bolts, it turns bitter, it flowers, it dies. And you are left staring at brown, rotting stems, wondering why you bothered in the first place. This is not agriculture. This is a rigged game designed to keep you coming back to the garden center every single spring, credit card in hand, buying the same seeds over and over again. But what if I told you there is a plant that breaks this cycle entirely? A plant that doesn't die after months. A plant that doesn't wither when the frost hits. A plant that grows into a fruit tree and feeds you fresh greens for the next years. It doesn't just survive winter, it thrives in it. In fact, when the temperature drops below freezing and every other vegetable in your garden is a frozen corpse, this plant does something biologically impossible. It gets sweeter, sweeter than a summer strawberry, sweeter than any leaf you have ever tasted. And you plant it exactly once. This plant isn't science fiction. In the century, it was growing in backyards across Europe and America. Farmers called it the Immortal Green. But then it vanished. Not because it failed, not because it was hard to grow. It vanished because it was too good. A vegetable that lives for decades and never needs replanting is a disaster for an industry that profits from your dependence. This is the story of the purple tree collard, the plant they erased from history. But here is the trap. If you go online right now and search for tree collard seeds, you will find thousands of sellers. Do not buy them. Percent of those seed packets are a biological scam. If you plant those seeds, you will not get the immortal giant I am talking about. You will get a weak, bitter imposter that dies like everything else. Stay with me, and I will reveal why this plant cannot be sold in a seed packet. I will show you the genetic curse that makes it impossible to mass produce. And I will hand you the only method to get your hands on the real thing. Because once you understand this, you aren't just growing food, you are breaking free from the cycle of agricultural slavery. Welcome to Soil and Secrets. Let's talk about what spinach really is. Spinach is a lie wrapped in green leaves. We have been brainwashed into believing that vegetables are supposed to be fragile, temporary things. You plant them, you nurture them, they mature, and then they die. This is the script we have been handed. Spring comes, you plant seeds. Summer comes, you harvest. Fall comes, everything dies. Winter comes, you starve unless you have a freezer full of last season's corpses. And then spring arrives again, and you go crawling back to the seed company to start the cycle over. You are not a gardener, you are a subscription customer. But the purple tree collard is a biological glitch in this rigged system. Somewhere in history, a kale plant mutated. It ignored the genetic command to die. Instead of flowering and rotting like a normal vegetable, it chose lignification. It chose to turn into wood. As the years pass, this plant doesn't get weaker. It gets stronger. Its stem hardens into a trunk. Its roots dig deeper. It defies the cycle. While your spinach is dead by June, this mutant enters a state of reverse aging, becoming bigger, taller, and more productive with every passing season. In the century on the island of Jersey, relatives of this plant grew up to feet tall. The locals didn't just eat the leaves. They used the dried stalks as walking sticks. They used them as rafters for their houses. Think about that. A vegetable you can build a home with. But here is the question that should haunt you. Why have we accepted a food system that forces us to work harder for less? Why is a vegetable that you plant once and harvest for years getting more productive every single season not the most famous plant on Earth? Why do you see endless advertisements for new and improved hybrid tomatoes that die in months, yet a biological miracle that feeds you for a lifetime remains invisible? The answer has nothing to do with the plant. It has everything to do with what you can and cannot put in a plastic bag. If this plant is so superior, why isn't it sold at every garden centre? Why doesn't the seed industry sell millions of packets of it? The answer reveals the hidden weakness of industrial agriculture, but the secret strength of the self-sufficient gardener. They don't sell it because they can't. The purple tree collard has a biological trait that makes it a nightmare for corporations, but a dream for anyone who wants true food independence. It is genetically unstable when it comes to seeds. This plant rarely flowers. It is too busy growing massive leaves to bother with reproduction. But even if it does manage to flower and produce seeds, those seeds are worthless. If you plant a seed from a purple tree collard, the baby plant will not be a tree collard. It will revert back to a wild, bitter, ancestral kale. It loses the immortality gene. It loses the purple color. It loses the sweetness. It loses everything that makes it special. This is the seed trap. Any website selling you purple tree collard seeds is lying to you. They are selling you a genetic counterfeit that will grow into a disappointment. This means the seed companies cannot mass produce it in a factory. They cannot put it in a foil packet and ship it to Walmart. They cannot turn it into a commodity. And look at it from a profit perspective. Why would they ever want to sell you a forever plant? If you own a purple tree collard, you have a food source that yields more every year for 2 decades. You stop being a customer. You stop buying seeds every spring. You stop needing their fertilizers. You stop depending on their system. They cannot monetize a plant that makes you independent, so they ignore it. They pretend it doesn't exist. They would rather sell you hybrid spinach seeds every season than admit there is a plant that makes their entire business model obsolete. But while the industry rejects it for being unprofitable, nature rewards it for being resilient. And that brings us to the flavor paradox. We have established that this plant lives forever. But does it taste good? This is where the logic of modern vegetables collapses. We are used to buying greens that are bred for shelf life, not flavor. They are watery, they are bland, they wilt the moment you bring them home. And we accept that winter vegetables are tough and fibrous. The purple tree collard destroys this assumption. When the temperature drops below freezing, most plants die because the water inside their cells turns to ice and bursts the cell walls. Game over. But the tree collard has a survival mechanism called cryoprotection. As the frost hits, the plant actively converts its stored starches into complex sugars. These sugars act like natural antifreeze, lowering the freezing point of the sap. The result is biologically absurd. The colder it gets, the sweeter it becomes. While your grocery store kale tastes like cardboard in January, a tree collard leaf harvested in the snow tastes sweeter than a summer berry. It is a flavor profile that money literally cannot buy, because you can only get it fresh from the living plant in the dead of winter. Imagine standing in your garden in February. The ground is frozen solid. Every vegetable you planted in the spring is long dead. Their brown, rotten skeletons are buried under the snow. This is the normal reality of gardening. Birth and death. But standing tall in the middle of this frozen graveyard is your purple tree collard. It is feet tall. Its stem is thick and woody like a tree trunk, and its leaves aren't dead. They are a deep, vibrant purple. They are alive. In fact, if you were to snap one off and eat it right there in the snow, you would discover something that defies everything you were taught about vegetables. It tastes sweeter than anything you grew in the summer. This isn't a fairy tale, this is cryoprotection in action. And that deep purple color isn't just beautiful. It signals the presence of anthocyanins, the same powerful antioxidant found in blueberries. But instead of eating a tiny handful of expensive berries, you are eating massive dinner plate-sized leaves packed with this compound. We are taking pills to prevent cancer and inflammation when we could be harvesting a pharmaceutical factory from our own backyard. So we have a plant that defies death, defies the seed industry, and defies the blandness of winter. It is the ultimate rebel. The only question left is, how do you actually get one if you can't buy the seeds? The answer is simple, but it requires you to think differently. You don't plant this vegetable, you clone it. Since the seeds are unstable and will betray you, the only way to propagate a true purple tree collard is through vegetative propagation. This means cuttings. You need a living piece of the original mother tree. This has created a secret underground network of gardeners. Instead of buying corporate seeds from the garden center, we trade living branches. To join this club, do not look for seed packets. They are traps. Go to Etsy, eBay, or local permaculture groups and search specifically for purple tree collard cuttings or rooted starts. You are looking for a stem about 2 inches long, stripped of its leaves. Just a stick. And here is the beautiful part. It is easier to grow than a weed. This plant has such a fierce will to live that if you take that stick, shove it into a pot of moist soil, and keep it in the shade for a few weeks, it will sprout roots. It wants to survive. It wants to live. You don't need a degree in horticulture. You don't need expensive equipment. You just need to keep it alive long enough for it to realize it is in the soil. Within weeks, you will see new leaves pushing out from the top. Within months, it will be taller than your knee. Within a year, it will tower over you. But remember, this is not a small lettuce plant. It is a tree, and trees need support. The stake rule is critical. Within a year, this plant will grow taller than you. The wood is strong, but the leaves are heavy enough to snap the trunk in a high wind. You must give it a spine. Stake it securely. Treat it like a young fruit tree, not a broccoli plant. Use a sturdy wooden or metal stake and tie the trunk loosely as it grows. This is the difference between a collapsed plant and a towering pillar of food. Now let's talk about the harvest protocol. This is where most people fail. They treat it like spinach. They cut the top off thinking it will grow back bushier. Wrong. If you cut the top off, you stunt its height. You kill the upward momentum. Instead, harvest from the bottom up. Snap off the lower leaves as you need them. The plant doesn't care. It keeps reaching for the sky. As you remove the bottom leaves, the trunk becomes visible, creating that signature palm tree look. And here is the magic. While you are harvesting leaves from the bottom, the top is still growing, still producing new leaves. It is a perpetual motion machine of food. Every single week, you can walk out to your garden and snap off a few massive purple leaves for your dinner. No replanting, no reseeding, just continuous abundance for the next years. We live in a time where food security feels fragile. Prices are rising. Supply chains are breaking. The produce on the shelves is getting less nutritious every year. Planting a purple tree collard is a declaration of independence from that system. When you plant spinach, you are renting your food security for a few months. You are a tenant in your own garden, paying rent to the seed companies every season. When you plant a tree collard, you are building an asset. You are creating something that will pay you dividends for a generation. Imagine looking out your window years from now in the middle of a blizzard. The rest of the world is grey and dead. But there, standing feet tall against the snow, is your purple giant, alive, sweet, immortal, waiting to feed you. You didn't just plant a vegetable, you planted a legacy. This is the plant they erased from history because it made you too independent. This is the plant that turns wood instead of dying. This is the plant that laughs at frost and rewards you with sweetness when everything else is frozen and bitter. Stop being a slave to the seed companies. Stop replanting the same vegetables every spring. Start thinking in decades, not seasons. Find your cutting. Plant it once and never buy spinach seeds again. Knowledge is not lost. It is simply waiting for you to remember.